Hello, I'm Philip Hughes, Chair of the Maroondah Interfaith Network in Melbourne. The network acknowledges that people in Maroondah, as in many parts of Australia, come from many ethnic and religious backgrounds. Our role is to build community by recognising our common human aims and goals while seeking to understand our differences. This series of seminars is about the common human goal of happiness and explores how people of different backgrounds conceive that goal and seek to find it. In each seminar, we've asked people from several faith backgrounds to speak about their understanding. We've also asked practitioners, psychologists and community development workers to help us too. To set the scene, I begin each seminar by drawing on my own research. I've been involved in doing interviews with hundreds of secondary students and have surveyed more than 10,000 students across Australia. I've found a high degree of agreement on the nature of both individual and social happiness and how it is achieved and how the challenges are met.
Happiness is about here and now. Young people we've surveyed and interviewed tell us it's about enjoyment, feelings of pleasure, having fun. Of course, what fun is varies greatly from one person to another. For one, it may be reading a really good book. For another person, it's the adrenaline rush of skydiving. I was reading a book recently which argued that a number of our biggest industries revolve around giving us feelings of pleasure. The entertainment industry, the wine industry, the gambling industry. He goes on to argue that most crime has to do with the pursuit of happiness. Half of all prison inmates in the US and 55% of all those in England, and perhaps 60% of all Australian prisoners, are there because of some connection with drugs, consuming or trading. Many of us try to create some pleasure, some happiness, by using chemicals in one form or another to forget our circumstances, to feel peaceful, or to feel confident, or to have ecstatic experiences. The retailers are constantly trying to persuade us that happiness, or at least feeling good about ourselves, depends on what we buy. Having the newest and best mobile phone, kitchen gadgets like fridges that talk to the internet, furniture, holidays are sold to us as the means to happiness. Rationally, we know it's not true, but we're frequently conned. There is another side to happiness. Relationships. Good friends are a very important part of happiness for most young people. However, it's the happiness in the family that has most impact on how they generally feel about life, as it is for older people. The biggest factor in people's overall satisfaction in life is their satisfaction with their partners and the quality of relationships in the family. What then is the means to happiness? For young people, it's mostly doing well at their studies, getting a good job which is interesting. Being bored is the worst thing in life. But it pays well enough to enjoy the rest of life. That's the dream. But many people do not do well in their studies or find the perfect job, and many do not find the happiness they seek. So what then can the religious traditions and science tell us about finding happiness?
So in the Buddhist tradition, well, the tradition I'm from, which is the Chan tradition, happiness begins when we stop. rest in that moment, being fully awake, being fully present to what we have in front of us right now. Thank you, everyone.
Let me tell you about a time that I failed in my pursuit of happiness. So that's my starting point of time. What I know about doing it wrong, but my life plan was to largely echo my father's footsteps. So my father was an engineer, recently retired now, and so I looked at his life and I figured, well, I'll emulate that, and then so the steps and the decisions that I will make at this point, as I consider study choices and subjects through VCE and so on into university courses, I'll map a path towards that direction. And what I didn't do was at the time actually stop and consider what actually makes me come alive here and now, and who am I as Lucas, as different and distinct to Raymond, and what makes me come alive, and how might I pursue that. Just complete disillusionment with that life direction, feeling that kind of crumble away from me, and stepping out of university, I went and did some just factory labouring for a year, and casual labouring and so on, which I admit now, like, I've not got the body build for that. But that's what I did for that time. But a real experience of all of those, the plan that I felt I had in front of me, the doors closing down, and then slowly rebuilding through nudging some of the doors that were open, and discovering a life path that was actually quite different and distinct from my dad. So what I've learned from that, and perhaps what I might get the opportunity to talk about later on, as human beings, I think we're actually pretty poor, and in fact the data suggests we're actually pretty poor at predicting what it is that will make us happy. And we're actually pretty good at choosing things that demonstrably make us unhappy. And so what I'll contribute to the conversation as we go, what we actually need is some sort of way, some sort of path that helps us set aside what's going on on our own plans, and actually explore and listen to what it is that makes us each individually come alive.
Just as Reverend Philip was introducing that, our pursuit of happiness, we try to find it through relationships, we try to find through fun. There are so many avenues through which we are trying to find happiness. But what's the common thing in all of them is very interesting. If you try to find out the psychology behind it, in our pursuit to happiness through all the avenues, the common thing is there is certain goal. Maybe I want to have some relationship, or maybe I want to have some fun through some delicacies, through some joy, some pleasures, through so many pursuits are there. I can try through all the avenues, but the main thing is there's an aim, there's a goal, there's a pursuit. And I feel when I reach that, I will get happiness. Now, there lies the real clue of happiness. You will find actually we never get happiness from the fulfillment of our desires, whatever it may be. It is actually the desirelessness that gives us happiness. So our mind is like a lake, which is full of ripples, waves. The bottom of the lake is your real nature, which is full of bliss. Now, what happens, you will find that in the swimming pool, when all are jumping, swimming, making fun, frolicking, you cannot see the bottom because it is full of turbulence. When no one is there, the bottom is clearly visible. Even a key ring has fallen, you can see where it has fallen. So what happens with us in our life, in our pursuit of happiness, there are thousands of thoughts. They say chitta vritti, like the waves, they are there in our mind. Now sometimes in our life, one particular desire shadows all other desires. The small ripples is engulfed by a huge wave. Suppose a child is not studying well, the father says, if you get such and such good grade, I will give you the latest model laptop. And now what he does, all his smaller pursuit stops. A big wave is in his mind, I will have to get the laptop. And to a certain extent, renunciation comes. How? The other pursuit stops because of this. And the moment, because of his interest in the studies, he gets the good grade, the father brings the laptop, he's terribly happy. He thinks this laptop has given me the happiness. But actually what has happened, all the small waves of the mind was engulfed by a huge wave. There was only one wave. The moment he gets the laptop, the wave ceases. There's a let go. For the time being, there is no wave. The happiness comes from within. It wells up from within. But it is our ignorance, I think, it is the thing that has given me happiness. And Shankaracharya, the 8th century philosopher who actually has propounded the Advaita philosophy, is saying a very nice thing, that what binds us, the cycle of avidya, kama, karma, ignorance. That I think the happiness is something outside. This is the ignorance. From that the desire arises. I'm in pursuit of that. And that leads me to all sorts of actions. And it is like a hedonistic treadmill. The treadmill, you run, you go nowhere. The same place you run. So it is ever running, never reaching, nor a distant glimpse of shore. That's what we go through in our life, in our pursuit for happiness in the external thing. Whenever we get a thing which I desire, for the time being, the mind is calm, a little happiness comes, and again it is gone, a new desire arises. Again I'm in chasing after it, and this chase goes on. If I would have kept my mind calm, with what philosophy? Neither seek nor avoid. Where in whatever situation the life has kept me, I don't run away from it. I accept it, but I don't go on just aiming for something more and more. Accept it, take the responsibility, don't run away from life, be with the life, but stop that endless just chasing after endless desires. That's never going to make us happy. If we can really have that let go sensation of life with a sense of surrender, if you believe in divine with a sense of surrender that gives the let go, that can really give the happiness.
I also want to talk to you about the happy hormones. Now, these are neurotransmitters, chemicals that are released. So we get a spurt of these from the brain when we are doing something that the body feels is a good thing for our survival, like eating, for instance. And so we have these various happy hormones. We need a good dose of them: DOSE, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So dopamine is a reward hormone, and it's connected with pleasure and motivation. We get a dopamine hit when we achieve a goal, when we get a pat on the back, when we listen to music, when we do something that feels good, and when we have fun. And when we drink coffee, and we eat chocolate, and we eat sweets and biscuits and cakes, and you get the picture. The downside of dopamine is that it is very addictive. And if you can imagine that alcohol and nicotine give us about 1 to 200 hits of dopamine. Good sex gives us about 200. Cocaine gives us about 350. And methamphetamines, wait for it, gives us about 1,250 units of dopamine. No wonder we have a nice addiction problem. And of course it destroys the pleasure centre and reward centre of the brain and other parts of the functioning too. So that's dopamine. Then there's oxytocin, and this is called the love hormone or the cuddle hormone. And this is actually flowing when we spend time with the people that we love, when we're kind to people. And it's about touch, if we hug people, massage, all of that is flowing. The oxytocin is flowing when we're engaged in those kind of activities and social interactions. Serotonin controls our moods, and it's about when we feel satisfied. And this is where gratitude is really important. Gratitude and random acts of kindness and things like that actually satisfy us, and the serotonin is released. Endorphins. So endorphins are often described as the nature's pain relief centre, and exercise is really good for endorphins. Also laughter. It's really good, as well as dark chocolate, spicy foods, and a few other things. So there's lots of these things that actually help us to feel good. These are the hormones that actually kind of help us to feel good. And even going outside and being in nature, so going outside and being in nature will actually be really positive for us. It will actually, even 5 minutes, they say, will boost our self-esteem, our confidence, our sense of well-being, and it will help the synthesis of the dopamine and the serotonin that's going on. So these things are really important to us. I'll come back to the safety and belonging aspect. I was reflecting the other day about the attraction of football. Now, my brother and I come from a sports literate family, and but I was debating with a colleague about why is it that some irrational person goes out in the middle of winter and sits in the cold and the rain and the sleet, and if you're in Canberra maybe watching in the snow, to watch people kicking a ball around that you can hardly see unless you're looking at a big screen up there and there's no commentary. Why would you do that when you could be at home with your 4K smart TV, sitting there with your, you know, in the warm lounge room with your feet up and a cup of coffee and having a good dopamine hit?
Because everyone needs a religion.
There you go. And what is it? And I was thinking back to our basic needs of feeling safe and belonging and feeling loved. I actually feel safe when there's 20,000, 40,000 and maybe 60,000, because I'm a Collingwood supporter, people who all want the same thing as I do. Okay? I feel a sense of belonging. I wear the gear and we commiserate and we celebrate together, and there's a dopamine hit every time there's a goal. My husband's a Melbourne supporter, there's not much dopamine for him. So it's interesting, isn't it? So how well do we do this in our faith communities? How well do we meet these needs of these really basic underlying needs of people feeling safe, feeling loved, and a sense of belonging? And I think we're very fortunate if we grow up in a safe family and school and community where we did feel a sense of being loved and belonging. And we're fortunate if we feel safe and demonstrate love and compassion for others and ourselves. And I think too we're fortunate if we know God, who provides us with a sense of ultimate safety, a sense of truly belonging, and a sense of being deeply loved. Thank you.
Why did God make you? God made me to know Him, to love Him and serve Him in this world, and to be happy with Him in the next. That became the paradigm for happiness for me for many, many, many years. It's still true, but I've learned that it's so much more than that. I'm going to go to the heart of what some of the other speakers have said. The real source of happiness is emptiness, is nothingness. It's a paradox. For many years now, more than 20 years, I have followed in my religious practice a practice of meditation called centering prayer, promoted by a man named Father Thomas Keating, a Trappist monk from America. And through that, I learned the primary text was Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Sometimes translated, be silent and know that I am God. The Jewish rabbis tell us that that word, still or silent, means let go. Hold on to nothing, because nothing is the only thing that really brings happiness. If we put our focus on other things, pleasures, other benefits around us, then it's not happiness. It's only temporary. So the biggest dopamine in my life, I'll be honest, is God. That is the real source of my happiness. That's a personal story. Noam asked me this morning whether happiness was a name for God. I have to say yes. But I have to be careful of the anthropomorphic, the human language that we use, because we put onto this, whatever this quality or divine attribute, whatever words we want to use to call it, we put on our human anthropomorphic categories. And that's what they become. They then become, the divine becomes made in my image and likeness, what I think it is. And it has nothing to do with it. 20 years ago, in my faith story, I began an interfaith journey which led into interspirituality. I'm what is known as a Catholic Sufi. So I jointly follow a Christian and an Islamic mystical path. The two witnesses the night I became a Naqshbandi Sufi were two Catholic priests, Father Frank Gehry and Father John Dupuche. And John said to me, be careful, it's not a double path, it's a single path. There is only one path, there is only one truth, but it is discovered and found in all religious traditions and cultures. If we could just embrace that in each other, we would have the path to social cohesion, social happiness, and we wouldn't need sport. Stop.